Once you have a pharmacy selected for your patient, you are then ready to e-prescribe for that patient. There are 3 ways to do this. The first is the long way, and when you go to the Prescribing Medications section, type in the name of the medication, select the strength, then prescribe it accordingly. The second way to prescribe is from the favorites list. The system allows you to save the commonly used prescriptions. You can then prescribe that medication with 2 clicks. The third way is to prescribe from the patient's active medication list. This is where you can renew existing medications. Let's take a look at the long way of prescribing. You type in a medication, we'll type in Alphagan, then click the Find button. When searching for a medication, you can search by the brand name or the generic form. Therefore, our Alphagan results show the A is capitalized because that's the brand name of the medication. If there is a generic form, it'll be listed in parentheses. Below the name are the listed strengths you can choose from. Click on the appropriate strength to take you to the SIG page. The signature or SIG page contains directions to the patient and also contains the signature of the prescribing provider. The provider for this patient, as well as the default pharmacy, is already listed. There is a section for a split prescription where you can select 2 pharmacies. So in examples, say where the provider wants to send a small number of medications to the local pharmacy so the patient can pick some up right away, then send the rest of the prescription through the mail order pharmacy, that takes quite a bit longer to get to the patient, the split prescription option can be used. When you select the option for a split prescription, you'll notice that when you select the quantity, you have 2 sections to denote how much you'd want to prescribe for each. The quantity field is how much is going to the pharmacy, and the split quantity is how much is going to the split pharmacy that you had selected above. This essentially results in 2 prescriptions, one going to the local pharmacy, the other going to the mail order pharmacy. Let's move on and select just one pharmacy. After selecting the pharmacy, you arrive at the SIG line. Here you can proceed to enter the SIG details as necessary. The last field is optional. It's not a required field, so if it's not applicable, you can leave it blank. The next line is duration. Duration is technically optional for prescriptions. If you set a duration on a given medication, the e-prescribing system will automatically calculate a stop date. When the stop date occurs, it will remove the medication off of the patient's active medication list and place it into the patient's medication history. The next field down is quantity. The next field below that is where you can cite the number of refills. The field below that is where you can type any directions to the pharmacist to dispense as written or substitute permitted, as well as a small text box where you can type out any specific or additional directions you want to convey. Anything written in the directions to the pharmacist section will remain internal between the pharmacy and you. The field below that is directions to the patient. Anything conveyed in this section will go directly to the prescription label. We suggest you use this section only when you have a very specific direction in terms of tapering or something like that. If a patient has documented problems, you'll see the ability to add primary and secondary diagnoses. Finally, at the bottom is the comments field. What is typed in here remains internal only. It doesn't go to the pharmacy, nor does it go to the prescription label. Comments are a good internal communication tool to use to keep the lines of communication open pertaining to a specific medication at the practice. For example, if I'm the provider and I don't want any refills until the next appointment, I would type "Do not refill." Now any of my clinical staff will see this comment for this specific medication. Once everything is entered, click the Continue button. The next screen we'll be taken to is the Review Prescription screen, where we get a nice overview of the prescription, essentially how it's going to look prior to going to the pharmacy. Depending on the medication you're prescribing, you may see savings automatically amended in the Substitution Permitted section. There are 4 options at the bottom. OK will create our prescription and allow us to take the appropriate action on it. Back will take us back to the SIG page in case we caught an error. Cancel will cancel this prescription at this point. Add to favorites will do precisely that. If this is a common medication you prescribe often to your patients, we recommend to add that to the favorites list. If we click on this button, it will take us to the Add Favorite Prescription screen. There's no patient information here because these favorites are not patient-specific. At this point, you need to determine which list you want to add it to. My List is the list for that specific user, and Practice List is the list that is practice-wide. You can also change the way the display name is listed. Once you click the Create button, the system will tell you that the favorite has been created, and it will return you back to the Review Prescription screen. If everything is okay, we can click the OK button. Once the prescription is created, it's sent to the Pending Prescription section for this patient, which is located below the patient's active medication list. To the far right, you'll see there is an Action section that has 3 options: Modify, Delete, and Favor. If any last-minute changes have to be made, you can do that by clicking Modify. If you wish to delete the prescription, just click Delete. And if you haven't yet made this a favorite, you can click Favor and make it one of the favorite medications. Next, if you are the provider, you can put in your signature password. Only providers will have signature passwords. And then there are 4 options to choose from. Send will send the prescription electronically to the pharmacy. On average, it takes about 60 seconds to make it to that pharmacy. Send and Print will send the prescription electronically to the pharmacy and then print out a copy. This copy can be used to put into the patient chart or given to the patient if they request it. Print without sending allows you to print the prescription as an original. If the patient doesn't know which pharmacy they want to use, they can simply get a printed copy of their prescription. You'd then sign that prescription or sign it and fax over to the pharmacy of their choice. You will also use this if you aren't signed up for the EPCS program. Remember, EPCS is Electronic Prescribing of Controlled Substances, and by default, a provider is not signed up for this. Lastly, Sign without sending will simply move this prescription to the Pending section and place it on the patient's active medications list without sending it or printing it. An example for this use is if you are giving a patient in-house samples, yet you know at a later time you'll be prescribing this for them. Once we click the Send button, we see it removes it from the Pending section and adds it to the patient's active medication list.